All right, good afternoon and welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining the brothers of the Tulsa Alumni chapter of Kappa Psi Fraternity in our 6th edition of our Kappa Awareness Summits. As always, we pray that you learn something from these summit series that will benefit you or someone that you care about and enrich your lives in some way. My name is William Becknell, and I will serve as your moderator and timekeeper today. Now, as moderator, I ask everyone to place your phones and or computers on mute so as to allow the speaker the opportunity to get through her answers clearly and without distraction. In the event that we do not get to cover your questions because of time, please send your questions to KAPsi Tulsa Alumni at gmail.com, and we will address it with a response. Please visit our YouTube page at KAPsi Tulsa Alumni for our previous summits, and be on the lookout for this one to be posted within a few days. Now, as your timekeeper, my commitment to you is to not exceed our 1-hour slot in order to remain respectful of your Sunday evening. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge our polemarch, Kiwan Kobe, for his leadership, the brothers and officers of the chapter for their support, and you, our participants, for requesting our speaker to come back and visit us once again. Back by necessity, this month's topic is Mental Health Awareness Part 2 with Dr. Janice Moody. Dr. Moody, a clinical psychologist and professor of psychology at Texas Southern University, visited with us a couple of months back and brought the house down. So much so that I've received several calls and text messages to ask her to come back again. Dr. Moody, sis, we welcome you again and look forward to an awesome call. The floor is now yours.
Thank you so much for having me again. I appreciate the invitation, and I am grateful that it was apparently impactful enough for y'all to ask me back. For those of you all who have not had the opportunity to sit before me as I run my mouth about the stuff that I care the most about in the world, I am a person who is most interested in engaging you all as the audience in a dialogue, as opposed to kind of presenting a monologue with the expectation that you'll sit, listen, and really kind of don't have much interaction. The goal of this particular exchange is for me to present information, hopefully in a manner that will allow you to have a better understanding of what mental health is, how it actually impacts us, and address whatever questions you all might have around mental health, more specifically as it impacts the Black community. So just for FYI, if I ask a question, unless I specifically indicate that it's rhetorical, that means that I'm waiting for somebody to engage and answer it. Otherwise, if you all have questions, this particular section is intended more so for us to kind of review some of the basics about what mental health is. So you all are familiar with the language and how this stuff works and impacts us overall, and more so for the sake of being able to provide a platform for us to get clarity and to address some of your individual concerns and questions and needs. With that said, let me ask you all, anybody, and I'm not looking for textbook information, you guys. I recognize I have a doctorate and different folks kind of have different ideas about what mental health is, but what do you think mental health is? What is it?
I'll go. So to me, mental health is health. I'm in public health, so it's a public health challenge and a public health discipline that is something that, you know, is considered in every conversation that I have, even in my day-to-day profession. And but I guess to get to the meat and potatoes of your question, it's caring, and it's caring, acknowledging the changes not only in your brain that could be as a result of, you know, maybe something hereditary, but the changes that happen in just, you know, the different response and stimulus to every day, and as a result of trauma. So it's just being aware of our brain health and our mental health, our mind health, how we think, how we feel, and just being more aware of it, and it, you know, and putting it on the forefront, just like we do our cardiovascular health, our women's health, our other forms of health in our body.
So Ashley, you just covered the majority of what I was getting ready to cover next, because yes, it entails all of that. Actually, it is our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. And it involves more than just what's happening with us as far as our emotions are concerned, but it also is connected to and impacted by our psychological processes, how we take in, make sense out of, interpret information, and what our behavioral components look like, which have implications for how we show up in our social interactions. And like Ashley mentioned, it makes sense from a public health perspective that you would have an understanding of the impact of our biological functioning, how our physiology, our genetics, how our neurochemicals, whether they're balanced or imbalanced, has implications for our psychological health, our emotional health, and our social well-being, because those neurochemicals in our brain help to determine how we feel. They help to determine what our thought processes are. They help to determine the content of our thoughts. Of course, we are familiar with the fact that neurochemicals have implications for how our bodies actually function, but all of those things are always working collectively. They're working in tandem. It's no one piece. And specifically for the Black community, when we take into consideration the impact of our external environment on how all those particular components are working, we are living a reality that's different from people who don't walk in our shoes, who don't have our history, who don't have our day-to-day experiences. So when it comes down to having an impact on how our emotional and psychological and social well-being impacts our overall sense of wellness, we need to have an understanding that just like there is a continuum for our physical health, you can be in perfect Olympic athlete, everything is great, you are the picture of health at like a 10, or you can be on the absolute opposite end, one foot in the grave, the other one on a banana peel in ICU, people praying over the life-sustaining machinery, like very hugely poor. So the reality is that mental health a lot of times is used in synonymously with mental illness, when in actuality, mental health is about where you are on the scale. And a huge part of what I attempt to advocate for is, much like you said, Ashley, is for people to have a different level of awareness of where they are on that particular continuum all the time. That way, you can understand what your baseline is. Baseline is basically kind of how you operate on a day-to-day basis, whether or not you kind of have a stable mood, you're a happy person, you're an intense person who tends to be in thought the majority of the time. There are some people who just, interestingly enough, kind of are lower, more even keel, not really excitable, don't get a whole lot upset about stuff, don't get a whole lot excitable about stuff either. But when you're aware of what your baseline is, and when things start to shift, then you are in a better position to be able to identify when something is problematic and actually address things from more of a preventive place, as opposed to trying to do damage control on the back end. So the deal is, for us as African Americans, we're living in an environment where a whole lot of our experience, what that looks like, allegedly, the narrative is written by people who are responsible for sustained oppression and chronic stress. And a huge part of what I would like for us to have an understanding of is the things that significantly impact our day-to-day functioning, in order for us to be able to validate those things, identify what they are, have grace for ourselves, and be kind when you can't show up in the absolute best way possible when you're managing a whole bunch of extracurricular things. And for us to know that there are resources, there is help, and to be empowered to seek that for ourselves. Huge part of what we do as a Black community, the reason why we've even been able to survive and be here today is because of the fact that we have historically been a collective people, that we take care of each other. So in certain instances, we've kind of been taught that you are not only responsible for yourself, but you're responsible for everybody else that you're connected to. And it's allowed us to be able to manage these however many years, because trust me, it didn't stop with in 1865 when the physical chains were allegedly, let go. But the psychological stuff we still carry on a day-to-day basis with very limited awareness of the impact that it has on us. So for us, we usually have a different level of unreasonable expectations for the things that we are expected to be able to push through. And a lot of times we associate mental illness or some types of, not even on a diagnostic level, but if you don't have the capacity to manage stressors in the same way that you would and show up in the same way that you would if you didn't have any stress, then we have a tendency to look at ourselves and each other as if we're weak and there's something wrong with us, as opposed to perhaps there's some external stuff that is making a contribution to how we're showing up in the world right now. So I'm here to help us to have a different level of understanding and for us to be empowered, because those things, of course, impact how we feel, they impact how we make sense out of what's happening, and they impact our behavior. Now, I don't know how many of y'all know about the relationship between our cognitions and our emotions and our behaviors, but in terms of how that works, there's a model that's called the biopsychosocial model. And basically what that means is our biological stuff, our neurochemicals, what's actually happening in our bodies physically, impacts our emotional stuff. And like we were talking about earlier, it has an impact on how we feel. How we feel has an impact on how we, in essence, behave. So one of the examples that I use all the time is, we talked about your friends group, especially if you have, long-term friends. There are generic, more predominant characteristics that folks have. You might have the one that's hyper religious, everything is about Jesus. And then you might have one who's a super militant one. You might have one who is the philosopher, and you might have one who's the aggressive one. You think everybody want to fight all the time. And depending on, everybody can be having the exact same experience, but how each one of those individuals experiences and interprets and subsequently responds is going to be based on their cognitive interpretation of what just happened. One of the examples that I gave the last time is, if y'all, the whole crew, let's say, for example, y'all, we just had Essence. The whole crew is in New Orleans for Essence. It's people everywhere, water wall folks running into people and knocking people drinks over and everything else. Everybody in the group is getting knocked over, pushed and everything else. Folks win other folks' drinks because people are inebriated, wasting stuff all over the place. But nobody but the one aggressive friend gets mad and wants to fight. Everybody else has interpreted the experiences. These people out here, wild, everybody having a good time. Let me get out the way. But the one who experiences life through the anger filter is the one who wants to fight everybody, because they feel like the experience to them means that they're being disrespected, and subsequently their behavior wants to follow suit. So if we have an understanding of how those things vary from person to person and what our triggers are, where we get those particular filters from, then what you do is not who you are. We have the capacity to change those things in order that we are better able to carve out these trajectories toward the life that we want, so that we can move towards the desired outcomes, as opposed to land somewhere and you be the person that at the end of every other weekend, every time y'all go out, everybody sitting around trying to figure out how we're going to get him out of jail because he had started some humbug fighting the people in the club, and we don't know why, because nobody else was mad when the drinks got wasted on them. It gets old after a while. But if you have a level of awareness that helps you to understand, why is it that you have that particular interpretation? What is that stuff rooted in? Then you can modify and change those particular things. The other thing is that a lot of times people don't take into consideration how our understanding of those particular factors can also help us to have a completely different level of understanding of what our role is in the larger social political context. And how is it that we can respond to those things? Because a lot of times we don't feel like we are empowered outside of perhaps voting, and people get tired of that when you vote, and then the people you voted for still act crazy. A lot of times we don't take into consideration who we are, how we show up, and how collectively those things have implications for how society functions. So we talked last time about the man who lives on the corner who suffers from schizophrenia, which is a psychotic disorder whose roots they're physiological. They're based on neurochemical imbalances. Now, whether or not you get schizophrenia could be depending on whether or not you have a genetic predisposition for it. Are there any other people in your family who suffer from a psychotic disorder? That increases the likelihood that you'll be susceptible to it. Much like when you go to the doctor's office and they start asking you about your medical history. How many people in your family have hypertension, diabetes? How many people in your family have a history of cancer? So they can trace those particular genetic predispositions. It's much like that with some of the more the mood disorders and psychotic disorders. So if you have an understanding of what you're set up for, and we have people in the community who are suffering undiagnosed and untreated, unaware and uninsightful, guess what? Just because they don't know, don't care, and are not receiving treatment does not mean that it's just their problem. Because when the man on the corner who is paranoid schizophrenia, who believes that there are CIA agents who have cameras in the streetlights and they're telling him that y'all trying to get him. So when he come outside to shoot everybody up because he is hearing voices and responding to command hallucinations, being on the block and find out who problem's gonna be there. Because then it's not just his problem. It's a problem for everybody who is in the vicinity. So ultimately, if we understand how all of these particular things contribute to what our experience is, then it puts us in a better position for us to be able to take care of ourselves. Prioritizing yourself first, because the people on the airlines are onto something when they tell you to put your own oxygen mask on first. You can't help nobody else if you fall out while you're trying to take care of somebody else. So if you do, you fall out and then they subsequently fall out too. Not good. You got to take care of you first. You're responsible for yourself first. Second of all, the reality is that we can be much more impactful if we work collectively than we'd be if we're around here trying to act like we are superhero individuals. Can I tell y'all we're social creatures by design? We are not created to be able to function independently. We're not. So that interdependence that allows for us to thrive, it requires that we have a different level of understanding of what's happening with us as a collective. Not only that, can I tell you, you don't always have to understand what's happening with somebody to have a level of sensitivity and compassion for it. If we understand that something is not right with somebody who does something that has, whether it's inconvenience or tragic, it gives us a different level of compassion and understanding, which subsequently informs how we deal with the circumstances. We live in an environment that largely the social, political, just the society at large, the mainstream would like to believe that we are inherently criminal and deficient. So when Black people do stuff, then there is usually some, and if it's an antisocial type of behavior, then immediately there's usually something associated with something being criminal, something being wrong, and the response to that is usually punitive. Not that folks might need help. Perfect example for that would be how when, we kind of know what the history of the crack game was and how it actually got into our communities. I don't know, y'all know some people who got planes and poppy fields, who out there growing crack in the backyard, growing coke? Oh, okay, I was just wondering. So it wasn't us, we were responsible for it, but when it came down to the dilemma of the addiction to crack and the impact that it had on our community, then we criminalized people who had addictions to substances, right? But when the opioid crisis started, compassion came seeping out of the cracks of the sidewalks and out of the walls and the ceilings and everywhere else. Can anybody tell me why it was a completely different level of compassion and understanding, perhaps for people who suffer from opioid addiction?
Because opioids come from pharmaceutical companies, and pharmaceutical companies have a lot of money.
They had
Yeah.
a skin tone.
And it impacted white Americans at bigger levels than it did the African American community, that like crack did.
Yeah. Can I tell y'all, Black people are not likely to get the opioids for pain when it comes out? It's some nurses on here I know who can tell y'all something about that. We're not as inclined to get that. They might give you a Tylenol 3 and tell you to take a nap, you're good. But the opioids, you don't usually get a prescription for that. But when it became a crisis, then all of a sudden it was compassion out of everywhere, and we have all kind of treatment for, it's a disease now, and you can go to Miami and stay in the rehabilitation / resort, and your insurance will pay for it, and your job, they're gonna hold it for you when you get out, because you have a disease, as opposed to people who look like us, who might be addicted to substances. Mess around and get caught in the wrong urban environment before marijuana started being legalized, and you could catch a life sentence right quick for weed. A whole different set of circumstances. All of that is to say that when we understand some of the things that help to inform some of the behaviors that we see in each other, we might be able to respond to them differently. And it can help us to facilitate things that can work for us collectively. If you feel like there's some community service, a bunch of the kids in your neighborhood acting a fool, as opposed to calling the police on the kids in the neighborhood who acting a fool all the time. If the kids in your neighborhood look like you, they might be more inclined to end up in body bags or in the youth detention center for small, stupid stuff, as opposed to what might be happening to the other kids who can come out here and shoot up a school and get Burger King and on their way to jail. So I'm hoping that this helps to give us an overall different level of understanding of what is happening with us and how. Okay. So now that we have an understanding of what mental health is, can somebody give me some ideas about some things that impact the mental health of the Black community in a different way than it does other populations?
Doc, I'll jump in there first. We can start with the invasion or the attack on Blacks from the media.
Oh, you mean like the gaslighting and those who want to control the narrative?
For sure.
Those who want to control the narrative. Again, it's much the same when the media is writing a story that dictates that this is who this particular group of people are and determines how everybody should respond to them. Do y'all recognize that that's not limited to the outside people, but many of us, most of us on some level, be it small or very large, internalize those ideas about who we are and show up in those ways. So can't expect people to aspire beyond what they believe they have the capacity to do. And if we do not believe that we have the capacity for transformation, then it won't change. It won't change. So our sense of self, our self-concept, what our capacity, what our value is, of course, if somebody tells you that you have no value, you are unintelligible, and you do not have the capacity to do anything beyond what it is that is generally represented in the media, and y'all know that ain't the good stuff, then why would you aspire to something else? What would help you to believe that it's possible for you to do something else? If what you know about African descended people being successful, thriving, innovative is anomalies, all you know about are the anomalies, then it would make sense for you to believe that that's not general. It doesn't happen as frequently as it actually does, and that's by design. So yeah, it has an impact on who you think you are, and if that would help you to determine that Black people ain't worth nothing when you see people doing stuff, then that's generally how you interpret that as well. Would you say, Will?
Hey, a couple things. Number one, I wanted to let everyone know, if you have questions, we welcome questions. Fire them away. Please open a new chat window, send it to me. I'll make sure we get it dropped in. Also, I just wanted to touch on something what you just said. We don't necessarily get an opportunity to aspire past what we believe in. I've seen for years and years and years where parents a lot of times will say something to children. And I think psychologically that will, get ingrained in the membrane, if you will. And children aren't when they're told they aren't, whatever, and they stop even trying a lot of times. In
essence, the expectations are laid out for you and we buy into them. Do you know that the voices of primary caretakers become the loops, the voices that loop in the back of your mind as you grow up into an adult? Whatever it is that they told you generally, then that's what you buy into, even if on an unconscious level. Has a lot to do with how what our academic performance looks like as well, because if the expectations are parallel to the ground, then that's kind of where we generally show up and stop there. Okay, there's a hand up and I don't want to mess the name up. Is it Mitek? And I want to make sure if that's a question that we address it.
Yes,
Okay.
The question I have for you is, how do you handle when your kids are going through a loss of friends due to drugs? And how, you know, I think culturally, I'm not originally from here, and there's a culture, there is a tradition, it's all combining that. How do you help them and get through all that, you know, because they shut down, they don't know. And the only way for them to be able to be okay is probably they will find something that would suppress the pain, which is substance abuse. It could be anything. So how do you approach that when you're going through that?
First of all, I can tell you as African Americans, I know in past generations, because I remember they told us this, children should be seen and not heard, but in actuality, that is the farthest from the truth. That is, so what we do is historically, we have socialized children to be quiet, have no voice, and to not validate their own feelings. Check in with them and validate what their experience is. A lot of times at that particular age, they don't even have the language or understanding or comprehension of the multitude of emotions that they're experiencing at one time to even be able to talk about it. The reality of losing people, particularly at a very young age, that's a conversation. Check in with them about how they're feeling. Those things have an impact on our functioning across the board. If you've lost someone as an adult, even, you recognize that depending on the value of that particular person in your life, it's possible you might not be able to sleep. It's possible you might not be able to eat. It's possible you might have crying spells off and on that don't seem to be triggered by anything. Give them permission to feel whatever it is that they're feeling, and to validate that sense of loss and pain associated with that is very real. Give them room for them to be able to talk about those particular things. Sometimes it's difficult for them to be able to find the words, but if they seem like they're more needy, give them the opportunity or create opportunities for them. If it's journaling, depending on what their age is, sometimes expressive art allows for particularly younger kids who don't necessarily have the verbal skills to be able to get some of that frustration out on paper, if they're painting or whatever, that kind of stuff. But the primary thing that you can do for them is validate their feelings, create room for them, encourage them to use their voice, and support them throughout that particular process. And after that, they have to have hope that doesn't necessarily have to be the reality for everybody and everything. Tomorrow may not come for everybody else, but you want to prepare for it. It's possible that it will come. It's possible to get beyond this particular painful experience, especially if they lose somebody that young. I mean, that's not usually a part of what they're developmentally prepared to be able to do, but they do need to have an understanding that it's possible to get over that particular feeling, and to help them to be able to express their emotions in a way that is productive as opposed to something that's more constructive. Some of them shut down, some of them collectively get together and want to do crazy stuff with the anger, but they need to have an understanding that creating new problems doesn't make the negative feelings go away. Is that helpful at all?
Yes, it is. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay. Kalithia had her hand up and then she vanished.
I wanted to echo and piggyback off what William mentioned earlier, and we as parents, we have to be very mindful of what we say to our students or our children. And I'm an educator. When I was in the classroom, I taught third grade, and you'd be amazed at how many parents would come and say, oh, well, you know, I'm not that good in math. And my response to them is always, well, you didn't have me as your teacher. But ultimately, for parents that said that in front of their kids, it automatically gave that kid a loophole to just say, well, I couldn't do it. I can't do it. My mom's not good at it, or my dad's not good at it. So as parents, we got to be very, very mindful of what we say in front of our kids, and just impart and be very intentional with our wording, and just say, you are a scholar. You know, I didn't have Ms. Radcliffe as a teacher, but you do, and you're going to be amazing. So that's very powerful what we say to our kids, because it sticks forever.
It does, even if they don't respond to stuff. Keep in mind the fact that parenting is a journey of seed sowing and cultivating. It's a whole lot of stuff that you will impart that you might not see until at 23, and something triggers. Oh, I remember my mama said, my daddy used to tell me that all the time. He was in line, that was the truth. We have not only the opportunity, but a responsibility, particularly for our kids who we do not have the luxury of being able to surround around. We don't have the opportunity to protect them from everything that this world has to offer. So we have to ground and prepare them to be able to sustain when they're in an environment that is on every level trying to completely denigrate the very essence of who they are. If everything in the universe is trying to tell you that you are not physically attractive enough, that you are not smart enough, that your only value lies in something in entertainment or what you look like when you don't have no clothes on, or how many followers you have on whatever random social media is the thing for the day, or how much money you're making for some professional athletic club. We have to build our children up at home in order for them to be able to go into an environment that's going to attempt to assign an identity and a value to them so that they can check in with themselves in the community that affirms them and be able to negate that. That ain't the truth, because my mama said and my grandma said and laid it on the street, and look what it is that I've managed to produce. Again, if we do not believe in what they have the capacity to do, then we cannot convince them of it, and they will prove us right. They will. Okay, anything else we needed to say? Because I forgot what I was talking about before that. Oh, okay, all right.
I just would like to piggyback. I'm a nurse of 23 years and deal with pediatric. And I would like to say that as a nurse, that a lot of things that we don't teach in the Black community is mental illness is not crazy people. We so much so that we always use the word crazy. So then when we have a child or someone in the family that deals with mental illness, we don't teach about mental illness. And then when we look at it from the aspect of crazy people, then no one wants to express themselves of how they really feel or seek help. So one of my things as a nurse is always discussing with families as well as the person dealing with the mental illness that you're not crazy. Talk from it from a standpoint of a chemical imbalance. And when you talk from it from a standpoint of a chemical imbalance, then you look at it totally different. Then you have what kids will talk about it, because as we can see, that suicide is at a rate outrageous right now. And I can tell you from working in mental illness that it's outrageous, and so much so that when one child does it, then it's a ripple effect. All the kids together have made this pattern. So now you're trying to break this cycle of what you've seen other people do. But one of the things as adults that I can say is that we don't deal with our kids' mental illness. We clothe them, we feed them, we do everything but talk to them about how they're feeling. We don't include that in our everyday life. We don't, when they come home, ask them how they're doing. How was your day? We don't dig into their mindset. We just clothe them and feed them. And that's part of our problems.
Huge part of it, stigma. There's a lot of stigma associated with mental illness. And like I said, that occurs on a continuum. Do y'all know that how they determine what constitutes or meets diagnostic criteria for a psychological disorder? There are certain symptoms or behaviors that they tend to look for. But the reality is that the symptoms and the behaviors don't look the same in every population. For example, when we look at, for depression, a lot of times, particularly major depression, folks are looking for characteristics like, really low mood and issues with sleep and issues with the inability to focus. A lot of times folks are teary, might be irritable, a complete lack of interest in pleasurable activities that can stretch across the board. It can be issues with appetite, weight loss, weight gain, the inability to cognitive distortions, negative thoughts coming from nowhere that don't make any sense, a sense of worthlessness and hopelessness and guilt about stuff that you don't have nothing to do with. And a lot of times those things will make them an impairment is because they can shut somebody's life down. people can't get out of the bed, and people are unable to just engage in the more basic day-to-day activities that help to sustain life. What do you think would happen in slavery if people would have the generic depression symptoms? Just the generic symptoms. You can't get out the bed or the floor, wherever it is you sleep. You can't show up for work. And you irritable snapping on the people. Who was you gonna snap on? What you think was gonna happen if you didn't show up for work? There were no options to manifest those generic characteristics. So a lot of what's happening right now is that in our community, a lot of us carry so much for so many people, we don't get the option to not show up in life. If you fall off today, then it's a whole domino effect that happens. Don't show up for your job talking about you couldn't get out of the bed this morning and see what happened. Might be somebody else sitting at your desk tomorrow. Don't get up and feed your kids and find out what happens. CPS coming because the children went to school hungry and the teacher done told them that the people at home not feeding them, somebody need to come get them. So a lot of times there are symptoms that we have that are very different than what it looks like in other populations because our reality is very different. Just like in men, a lot of times depression shows up in ways that are very different than how it shows up in women. Women are socialized traditionally to be more verbal, to be more emotional. So the women might have more of the affective components where there might be more shifts, lower mood. There might be more crying. There might be weight loss and sleeplessness. Men are not likely because men are socialized traditionally to be less verbal, to not really be able to tune in to emotions short of the negative ones. So you could be mad, you could be frustrated, you could be irritated, you could be angry, but you can't be sad because that's going to make you weak. You can't be around here declaring that you need support or that you don't understand what's happening to you or that you feel like you're overwhelmed. You can't express those things because those make you less than a man as far as your performance is concerned. So men's depression tends to show up with irritability, agitation, issues with sleep. It shows up as issues with, we also talked about the appetite stuff too, the inability to concentrate and focus, and withdrawal. Men will snatch back real quick and ain't talking to nobody and mad at everything. And when you don't have an outlet for that, a lot of times it manifests in what we call self-medicating. Substance abuse sometimes. So you got to drink a 6-pack every night. What that's gonna do? If only for the sake of you being able to numb the feelings and get to sleep so you can push right into the next same foolishness the next day.
Tomorrow.
So
Yeah.
right, just start it all over, start the cycle all over again, and be more angry because you don't know where it's stemming from and you feel like there's no way to make it stop. Like as a man, you have this list of responsibilities with no access to resources to be able to change stuff.
Amen.
Completely shifts relationships, completely shifts. You don't show up, everybody got an explanation about why you not showing up. They're responding to the explanation. You ain't gave nobody no feedback. So it's all kind of problems and bombs going off around you. Meanwhile, you are deteriorating from the inside out and can't talk to nobody about it because you're scared it's gonna make you everything but a man. Everything but a man.
Right.
So we have to have an awareness of where we're operating from. Brothers, y'all need to create safe spaces for yourself. Stop lying to yourself about what being a man means. So if you know you got a brother who is not operating at his best and you see some stuff on his shoulders, then you create the opportunity for it to be safe for him to talk about what that is. And it be affirmed and validated as opposed to shut up, don't cry, nothing wrong with you, man up. We talked about this toxic masculinity stuff last time. Create a safe space for it. Understand where you're operating from, and you be the model for normalizing. You know, men are human. You might not express the entire range of emotions, but trust me, you got them. Now you can swallow the ones you won't swallow and see what happens. They'll show up somewhere else. Why your blood pressure so high? You ain't but 52 years old. You shouldn't be walking around here with your blood pressure at stroke level. What's wrong with you? Why you don't sit down? Everybody else is hanging around and having a conversation and being social. You come home from work mad every day, don't want to talk to nobody until after you done had a six-pack. What's the issue? And the dudes, y'all, a lot of times the conversations are real superficial, not talking about what you're feeling, what you're dealing with. And the reality is that you are not dealing with those things yourself. Even if it ain't nobody else in your crew, trust me, the reality of being a black-skinned male in this context, in and of itself, disposes you to trauma. Whether you're conscious of why you got it or not, you got it.
You're right.
I ain't here trying to pathologize nobody, but I'm able to see stuff with a bit of a different filter than most people are. So I have an understanding of what it is that people are walking around carrying with no level of awareness. Just trying to push through. You got a question, Will?
I do. Related to that, I have a question. As a lady, wife, girlfriend, how do they deal with that when the man is withdrawing and we need that six-pack, or we need that blunt, or whatever it is, before we can come in and start to deal with family or what have you. How as a woman do you encourage the man to try and open up and talk a little bit?
Again, make it a safe space. Inquire. Not just, and a lot of times it's easy to answer, well, what's going on with you? And pay attention. Pay attention. If you got to take some kind of medication to go to sleep every night and you're still tossing and turning, that's a problem. If you always have to be physically engaged in some level of activity, or you're irritated and agitated, that's a problem. If your forehead's scrunched up and you don't generally engage, especially if you're the kind of person who engaged in social activities before. You ain't got the energy, you don't want to be bothered, you can't listen to nobody, you don't have the patience for none of that. That's a problem. And inquire. Whatever it is that he has to say about it, affirm that. Don't tell him what he need to feel or how he should express it, or, well, you need to do this, you need to do that. When you find out that things are not what your expectations are, then inquire about why that is and support him in allowing him to feel whatever it is that he's feeling. It's all right for you to be sad because you're human, right? And I'm not going to judge you. My value, your value to me does not lie, or is not assigned based on your having the inability to be strong all the time. You're having the ability to not ever cry. You ain't never cried before in your whole life, so that makes you a man. Or you don't experience compassion and all the rest of it. No, it doesn't. You can't be whole in a relationship if you ain't whole outside of a relationship. And if you are not allowed the opportunity to be fully human, then you call what you want to call it. You ain't whole. You're not whole.
Doc, I want to back up just a little bit. I've got two other questions here. I didn't want to interrupt you earlier, so I'm skipping around the questions as you talk.
It is what it is.
How important is the connection between physical health and fitness and mental health in today's youth? Okay.
First of all, we have to take into consideration that what today's youth play looks like, their recreational stuff is real different than ours was. Y'all know your mama used to tell you get out and don't come back get out the house and don't come back until the street lights come on.
Right.
And we were good with that. We were looking forward to going outside. Their social environment does not look like that. Even the stuff that they eat, mine can sit down and eat a 3-4 ounce bag of the Sour Patch Kids like it's a bag of potato chips. And we'll sit in front of the dog on the game for hours. It's 15 of them on the game playing, but y'all ain't outside. Get outside, go do something. That movement has implications for your neurochemicals. That movement helps to increase your endorphins. It has an impact on your mood, and you learn what social interactions look like. Do y'all realize when kids go to school, in preschool and kindergarten, that they ain't going to learn alphabets? They're not going to learn the colors and the shapes. They're going to learn social skills. Wow. And our kids don't learn social skills from behind screens. Y'all know cyberbullying and frenemies was not a thing. We was in school. If I don't like them, I don't fool with them, period. now you got people who are in folks' inboxes and social media stuff, cyberbullying people, and I'm gonna do you this, such and such, la da da, whatever, real brave behind the screen, but they can't manage those kind of interactions in real life. They don't know how to have a fight with your friend today, your best friend today, y'all in the street scrapping like you from the Bloods and the Crips, and then the next day, 11 o'clock, you at the other one house ringing the doorbell. Say, man, you come and shoot hoops today or what? They don't know how to recover. That physical health, they don't know how to be team players. They don't have an understanding of the interdependence and connection on other people. Cause let y'all be riding somewhere and your bike break, and you want your friend to help you to fix your bike as opposed to leave you out there chilling, and you got to figure out how you gonna get home because your bike broke.
So how do we fix that as a community?
A lot of times we have to be intentional about creating opportunities for our kids to be more physical. Put them out. It could be difficult right now, y'all, because I don't know if we live on the equator or what, but it is 978,000 degrees outside. I recognize that it is. It's 978,000 degrees. But if it's a matter of, and I mean, this might sound crazy. Y'all know they used to have a thing as midnight basketball. Make the kids go outside and engage. The boys in our neighborhood, I have a 14-year-old son, and the crazy ones, they like to hang out here. So I'll make them go do stuff specifically for me. Go around, go take the dog over here. Y'all go to the such and such house, and I'll make them get outside of the house and go do stuff. Or sometimes I'll take them myself. Come on, y'all, we're gonna go to the main event, and y'all gonna get up and climb on these things, and we're gonna play laser tag. Y'all, my knees be crying, but it's fun, and it's an opportunity for them to get out and move and have a different level of appreciation for what that movement does. Because guess what you're not gonna be at 16, 17 years old, wearing 300-400 pounds, laying on my sofa playing the game. We're not doing that. Right. And then I'm trying to figure out how it is that we're trying to manage type 2 diabetes and you ain't made it to nobody college yet. We're not doing it. We're not. Create the opportunities. Now with our D9 organization, there are all kinds of community service projects that we have. If it's a matter of us creating mentorship groups, well, y'all, we get ready to go scoop up all the guys, all the boys, and we get ready to go take them to the park. We get ready to go take them to the gym. We get ready to go take them somewhere else. And if y'all ain't doing that, but throwing the football around with them. The girls, if y'all want to come on, y'all, let's go look at this stuff and we going shopping. They ain't got to have $10 because you're going to buy a pair of earrings or something random and dumb, but it's going to get them to get out and move.
Claire's.
Get out and move. We ain't going to Claire's. I found out some of their makeup has talc in it. Y'all, it's got asbestos. That's too much documentary. Nonetheless.
My 4 daughters love Claire's.
Yeah, but it's that kind of stuff. And there are other things that we can get out and help them to do. Gardening, that might sound like it's corny, but can I tell you, I think that's going to benefit us in about 5 more minutes if you know how to grow your own food.
Right.
And there are other things. There are biking clubs, there are running clubs, all kind of stuff that we have the potential to get our kids involved in, especially if they're not like, mine is a music one, but he's just not developing some level of interest in the organized sports. So now he in 52 camps. You get the basketball camp and the football camp and the band camp and the conditioning for the basketball. So those things, and once 1 or 2 of them get involved, then the rest of them want to participate if for no other reason for the socialization process. So correct. They don't always know what's good for them. Then a huge part of our responsibility is to curate the experiences that we recognize that they need for the sake of facilitating the developmental process. Because let me tell y'all what else is happening. We're looking at the experiences of depression, anxiety, and that suicidal stuff, and self-esteem is in the ground. You realize the difference between sending somebody a text message and asking them, telling them that you like them, and asking them to be your girlfriend, boyfriend, or whatever, check, no, check. And it's easy for you to manage rejection from behind the screen. As opposed to you get up the gumption to go ask somebody to go to the school dance with you and you get the rejection face to face. There's usually a crowd of people around. The folks know what's going on, the news, the travel, and you feel small for about 10 minutes. But guess what? You develop the capacity to get over that. You learn how to manage rejection. You learn how to manage social conflict. You learn how to assess the character of the people that you spend your time with when you have one-on-one interactions with them. as opposed to what they do. They could be any damn body behind the screen, anybody. So some of what, especially for some, it's like some of the clients that I have who have adolescent girls, I encourage them to find environments and groups of teenagers and girls around their age whose parents are sowing similar values in them and create opportunities for them to engage. So that you know that the same stuff that you want your daughter to be learning, or the same stuff that you want to be reinforced for their development, they're gonna get when they're with these other people. I know my child's parents, I know them. All of us will snatch any other, we don't care who house you at, who you with in public, everybody is liable to get snatched if you offline. You will get snatched. So we have the opportunity to be able to sow into them the seeds that we want to develop with them, create those particular opportunities, and kind of nudge them in those particular directions so they can get what they need for those things to be cultivated. Yeah.
Okay, let me put this hand down here. I recognize that we are at 6:53.
Oh, yeah.
I have been given the okay, or by myself, actually. I'm going to take executive license to extend this call past 7 o'clock because I see it going that way. Question here, Doc. How do you handle if you have a loved one that has been sexually assaulted and during the process of healing, they've pulled away from both the family and the church?
Oh, that makes sense. It makes a whole lot of sense. First of all, I would inquire about what they want to do and how they want to handle it. Let them know that completely validate the fact that it is a traumatic experience. You are a victim. It's nothing that you are responsible for. I don't care if you're a 7, 8, 9, 17, 20, 30-year-old person who stood in front of somebody and took all of your clothes off. A violation is a violation. Let them know that there is help and support available, and inquire with them about what they want to do. Because there's some people, depending on who the perpetrator was, have a difficult time coming to grips with what actually happened, especially if it's somebody in the family. There's in those kinds of circumstances, or if there's somebody else who might be outside of the family, but who's still kind of in the mix, it's amazing the amount of trauma that they swallow for the sake of making everybody else comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Particularly when stuff happens either in the family or really close to the family. Yes, validate what their experience is. It is traumatic, and help them to understand that, even when we don't address those kind of things, those things have an impact on our development. It is super difficult, if not impossible, for you to exist in a healthy, intimate relationship if, in fact, you've been assaulted and violated in that way. Because it determines what your lens is. It determines how you respond to intimacy. It determines how you see somebody responding to you like they're attracted to you. What's your interpretation of it? Does it give you the creeps? Does it make you want to throw up? I mean, that's very real. So if people have an understanding of the fact that you have in fact been victimized, it has been traumatic, and if you carry the trauma as opposed to address it, then it will continue to impact what your future relationships look like. It is not your fault. There is help, and if you need support or assistance with getting that help, then I'm here to help you with it, with no judgment.
Doc, the fact that you said there is help, you can get help, and they can get it from you. Tell them how you can be reached, please. Everyone, get your pens and papers ready or whatever. I didn't mention it earlier on this call, but previous call I did. Dr. Moody is not only my good sister friend from college, she's also my personal therapist, and she's awesome. So hey, go ahead. How can we reach you, Doc?
At www.drjanicemoody.com. I'll put that in the chat. Yeah, that's your questions. Even if I'm gonna be honest, right now, I only have room for bi-weekly and monthly clients, and location is not a huge issue, particularly if you're in Texas, because via teletherapy, I am certified to see people across 27 different states. I got clients all over the doggone US. And even if you only want that, can you give me some insight, give me some direction? I need to understand. I'm not clear on what my issues are. I don't know if I need help or not for real. Then please do reach out. The entire purpose of me being in this work is for the sake of, again, education for us and increasing access, because not everybody understands what pathology and adaptive functioning looks like for us. And if you don't understand what that is, then how you gonna help me if you don't know what healthy and normal look like? So yeah, Doctor, I'm gonna put it in the chat because my Janice is spelled differently.
I got you, Doc. Already
Okay,
there.
work it out. Yeah. Okay. Any other specific questions?
Come on, y'all. I just told you we're going to extend this thing past 7 o'clock. Come on, these questions.
Okay. All right. I talked a little bit about understanding what some of how you might know when you need some help. For example, let me give y'all some other stuff because we don't pay attention to it. And sometimes there are things that we normalize because we are in it so long that we don't recognize that something is wrong with it. Again, that whole sleep thing, y'all, sleep is important. You can't function without sleep. If you got to take something to get up in the morning and you got to take something, no, you got to, all through the day, you got to be taking stuff, some kind of substance, caffeine, something to be up and functioning throughout the course of the day. And then you got to take something to go to sleep at night. Something is wrong with that. You need to go to your PCP first to make sure, rule out any physiological stuff that might be responsible for you not being able to sleep. But if you have sleep patterns that are jacked up and while you're trying to sleep, your brain won't turn off. You got all kind of, I need to do this, I need to do that, I didn't take care of this, all kind of other random negative things that are floating around in your head that you feel unable to turn off or to manage. That's chemical stuff too. So those kind of things are generally indicative of a mood disorder, truth be told. Anxiety disorders, that can be a part of depression too. And sometimes attention deficit stuff. Y'all would be amazed at how many people are out here, adults out here undiagnosed, trying to manage attention deficit disorders. And it's driving them crazy because they can't figure out what the cycle is about. Pay attention to those things. If you are a person who has historically had a very active social life, but you find that you don't want to be bothered with nobody, stop talking to me, I can't listen, I don't have time, I just don't feel like it. Pay attention to I don't feel like it and I'm tired. How often do you say I don't feel like it and I'm tired? As opposed to what your general baseline functioning looks like. Are you tired and you ain't done nothing yet? Has your tired carried over for 3 weeks? You've been tired. You don't remember the last time you wasn't tired. That's a problem. Those are major indicators of what we call on the slick pervasive depressive disorder, especially if you don't have a bunch of other really major depressive symptoms that make you feel like, ain't nothing wrong with me, I'm just tired, I need to take a nap, but the nap, A, is not happening, and B, you're not restored. You still got some other stuff going on. Pay attention to that. And guess what? When you feel inclined or compelled to pull away, isolate from the people who affirm and support you, guess what? The primary thing you need to do is to reach out for them, because those are the folks who can help you. Those are the folks who are there and invested in your well-being. So when you feel like you want to go sit in the corner and run away from the people, you need to run to the people. You know who the people are. Those who affirm, those who are supportive, those who have room for you to just ramble and not know what you're talking about. You can't explain why you're crying. You don't know why you're mad. You don't understand why you can't sleep, why your appetite is doing what it is, and you don't want food, but you want wine, and you don't want to work at your job. You're not as productive as you used to be. Yeah, stick tight to the people who support you. Eating or sleeping too much or too little, you know what your norm is. When those things shift again, and there is no medical reason for it, it's an indication that something is wrong. Having low or no energy. I'm talking about 3-4 hours trying to get out the bed. Just lethargic. And it's almost like a gray cloud, or like it feels like you're physically walking around with something heavy on you that's making it difficult for you to I ain't talking about running or going to the gym, exercising. I'm talking about you get to the house and it take you 30 minutes to get out of the car. It ain't because you're on the phone chit-chatting about some stuff you ain't ready in the conversation. You don't have the energy to get out of the car and go into the house. That's a problem. Feeling numb, like nothing matters. Apathy, the stuff that you used to care about, you like, oh, all right, what you wanted me to do about that? When your plate is too full, you don't have room to care about the stuff that matters. That's a problem. It's talking about your emotional availability. Your emotional resources are tapped. You don't have a room to care about nothing else. That's a problem. Because guess what? Should something happen to one of your loved ones, something happens to your child, your spouse, one of your parents, and you ain't got the energy or the interest to move as fast as you need to move to show up for them. Or for you, you're more inclined to put yourself in harm's way and not do nothing about it. That's the problem. Unexplained aches and pains. Your stomach might hurt, you might get these headaches, you find yourself, you get up before you have the coffee in the morning, you drinking the coffee and you taking the goodies with it every morning. Goodies is not breakfast.
Right.
It's not a nutritive substance. If you have physical aches and pains, sometimes we get body aches with mood disorders. We call those psychosomatic symptoms. They're not associated with a physiological or biological problem or a medical issue. Those things are associated with mood disorders. Y'all ever saw they used to have, I don't know if it's like really major on the market no more, Cymbalta. They said depression hurts, Cymbalta can help. Literal physical body aches. Y'all know how when your body get achy when you start getting sick or something like that, and you can tell like, why am I physical aches for nothing? You go to the doctor, they're looking at you like, lady, get up out of here. What is wrong with you? It's a problem. You need to talk to a therapist. Smoking, drinking, and using drugs, any other stuff that more than you historically have. I'm sorry, go ahead, Will.
No worries. Got another question here. What if you've tried different medications prescribed by a doctor, but there's no major improvement? So you push yourself to get out of the mood, but it's hard. How do you break the cycle?
Okay, are you just taking medication? If you're just taking medication, remember what we said, y'all. Treatment should be comprehensive. So it's not just physiological symptoms, but they're physiological symptoms. There are cognitive, emotional, psychological things, and there are also external factors. I don't give a damn how many antidepressants somebody gives you on a 3-month basis. Every 3 months you go get a new prescription, but you are working in a toxic environment. It is the comparative of you going to the doctor to get a refill on 800 milligram naproxen every month because you get up and go run into the same brick wall every day. The problem ain't that you got headaches based on some physiological issue that needs to be medicated. The problem is that you're running into a brick wall every day. A lot of our showing up in the systems that we manage on a day-to-day basis is the comparative of leaving your house and running to a damn brick wall every day. So medication is not just going to help it. Now, it might treat the symptom, but if the issue is you being in a toxic environment and not having an understanding of what's happening to you for real, because a lot of times, y'all, it just be a stack of microaggressions. And nobody might not have called you the N-word, but you were one of the second, third people who have been at the corporation since the corporation started, and you trained everybody to come in the door to be your boss. Somebody in HR has tipped you to the reality that you are the lowest paid employee despite being the one with the most credentials and experience. You sitting in a table at the conference room, and every time you got something to say, people looking at you like we ain't asked you that. Shut it down, dismiss it, and start talking about something else. I'm listening. Go ahead.
Look, I'm loving y'all with these questions. You're firing them in over the computer and my cell phone. First one that came in here, based on the behaviors that you mentioned, how do you determine what type of doctor or counselor to seek help from?
Can I tell y'all that the first thing you need to be looking for is somebody who gets it? And I'm gonna say that because I am not only Black racially, but I'm also Black culturally. And a huge part of what I advocate for is cultural competency. If you can not affirm my humanity, my cultural context, my reality, then we can't have a conversation, player, because you do not see me. You don't see me. So I don't care what school you went to, how many degrees you got, how many times you've been on Dr. Phil and wrote books and you're on Oprah Soul Sunday. I give no damn. If you cannot affirm my reality, then you cannot help me to get where I want to go. You can't. So the first thing is, I'll tell you to go to your primary care physician if you're having physiological symptoms. Like I said, sometimes the sleep, sometimes the body aches, sometimes the appetite stuff can be shifting based on medical stuff. You want to cancel out the possibility that it's anything medical. And you need to, especially as a Black person, I would strongly encourage you to look for somebody who might be able to rate, who looks like you. And guess what? You can interview them before you give them your money. A consultation, be clear about the issues that you have. And you might want to talk about your racialized context and how those things you think might impact what some of your current issues are, what some of your issues with well-being are. And if they can't acknowledge or don't know what that is, then you might want to holler at somebody else before you start paying somebody to be trying to convince you that your racialized context don't have nothing to do with the symptoms that you have. So it's a trial and error process, but in essence, we have better outcomes with people who look like and can relate to us. Now, I'm not going to say that everybody who look like us can, and I'm not going to say that there are people who don't look like us who can't. But it's a matter of your being able to have a conversation when people know what you're looking for. If folks can have a conversation and don't be squeamish about racism and about oppression and discrimination, then they might be able to see you for who you are, validate your experience, and help to facilitate a process to help you to get from this side to the other.
Gotcha. Doc, next question is sexual dysfunction related to aging. How to have those conversations for both males and females.
Oh, Lord Jesus, be offense. People didn't used to have that. Well, no, they just didn't talk about it. Again, first thing, go to a doctor and find out what's happening. Go to a doctor and find out what's happening. And there needs to be a conversation. Is this within a relationship or outside of it?
Let's address both. Let's try within and then without.
Okay. Within a relationship, then there should be some level of context or baseline that should allow the people who are connected to have a safe space to talk about what their concerns are and what aging looks like. Menopause is real in the streets. Ask me how I know. Not only that, if we take into consideration the fact that there tend to be disparities with the incidence rates of hypertension and diabetes and all the rest of this, heart failure and that kind of stuff in the Black communities, those particular things tend to be consistent with medications that are responsible for erectile dysfunctions. So that not only tends to be more real for Black men, it tends to be more real for Black men at a younger age than it does for other groups. So if you as a Black man are not aware of and are comfortable with having a conversation with your doctors about what's going on, whatever medication that you're on, and it is not allowing you to have the quality of life that you desire, then you can have a conversation with them about changing it, because it's more than one, first of all. Second of all, if you are engaged in sexual congress with somebody that you don't feel comfortable having a conversation about your medical stuff with, then it's some whole other stuff y'all need to be having a conversation about first. Y'all need to talk about some other things, because guess what? If you're not if you don't feel comfortable having a conversation about some of the physiological stuff that might be happening with your body, because you know you ain't 12 no more, you're probably not comfortable having a conversation about negotiating what sexual stuff looks like, what you're okay with, what you're not okay with, what your limitations are, whether or not people are okay with risky or not risky behaviors, and what that looks like varies from one individual to the next. So when you're engaged in those kinds of interactions as adults, those are real conversations that people have to have. And a part of menopause, the perimenopause, y'all know they talk about menopause, but menopause is about this long. Perimenopause is like this long. That's how many years perimenopause is. There's not as much literature about it. And people don't talk about the decrease in libido. They don't talk about painful sexual experiences. Vaginal intercourse can be painful with perimenopause. Dryness can be an issue. So there are a multitude of things that can have implications for what those interactions look like. But if people, again, are aware of where they are operating from in terms of their own physical care, then you can have a conversation, or you should have a conversation with whoever it is that you're involved with, because guess what? There are things that can help with that. But if you are too ashamed of what your own stuff is to be able to, hey, you might need something that can help to facilitate or deal with vaginal dryness. Or if you got some issues that's responsible for some erectile dysfunction stuff, is there a medication that you can take that can help you with it, that can remove the barriers to intimacy? But you have to get to a place, first of all, with yourself where you're comfortable even going to find out what's going on, get the resources and taking care of yourself. And it's your responsibility to deal with and have a conversation with the people that you're involved with so you can eliminate that as a barrier. I understand the fragility of the male ego. I do. But set yourself up for success in those particular contexts. Now, in the context of a relationship, marriage, people who are intimate and the expectation, because monogamy is assumed, Lord Jesus, monogamy is assumed. In a context of a relationship, it should be easier for you to be able to create a safe environment for your partner to be able to talk about those particular issues and concerns because it impacts the both of y'all. And intimacy physically impacts intimacy in other areas of an exclusive committed relationship, be it with wedding rings and vows or not. Did that make sense? Did I answer the question?
Definitely.
Okay. I'm trying to be concise. Pray on that, y'all. I don't have that skill. Oh, okay. You had another question?
I don't see any more. Anyone want to come off mute and ask a question? I promise you, this is a safe space.
It is. I know y'all just heard me talking about perimenopause and vaginal. Come on now.
I have a question.
Okay.
So I have gone to counseling and with people that, look like me, but a lot of problem that I run into is they are Christian, which I am as well, but they focus more on the Bible and reading scripture and those feelings that you feel because you're not connected with God. And so I always go or walk away not feeling like my issues been resolved. So do you think some of the symptoms that you mentioned, I experienced those. So do you think that maybe reaching out to someone that's not Christian would probably be better?
Let me ask you this. Are you going to see Christian counselors? Because that's a different kind of a training process as opposed to a counselor who might happen to be Christian in faith.
They happen to be Christian in faith, but I use them through my EAP and they're not like, oh, we're a Christian counselor through a church. Okay.
Because that can make a difference in terms of where people are operating from. But I'm not gonna say that you necessarily, as a counselor, that's an ethical issue, because truth be told, your religion is supposed to get checked at the door. And religion and faith and spirituality, particularly for us, is a coping mechanism. So what you should not do is put your stuff off on somebody else and to determine that that's what it is that they should be doing based on whatever your faith base is. So the first signal that you get of that happening in the context of therapy, you need to run for the hills. Second of all, when you are, if you want your faith to be integrated into your therapeutic process, then when you are interviewing or talking to a counselor for the first time, then you should let them know that that's what you want. And that also should afford you the opportunity to direct what that looks like. So if somebody's talking about or is giving you some information that's inconsistent with what you believe, first of all, you shouldn't have to sit up in the counseling and be trying to validate and go back and forth and trying to affirm what your beliefs are, and as opposed to that's a red flag. But that shouldn't even be anything that they introduce in the therapy. If you talk about it, then that's something that you have the opportunity to lay the foundation for what it looks like and how you utilize that in your process, as opposed to them giving you directives on it. Because y'all know how many of us Christian is 52 different denominations under Christianity. And even if you just look at the Baptists, you can have 17 Baptist churches on one block and all of them doing something different. So how we interpret faith, religion, Christianity varies from one person to the next. You don't need to go to therapy for somebody to tell you that whatever's wrong with you is wrong with you because you ain't praying enough, or such and such, thus and so, or this is what you need to do in your faith. But if they can't give you the direction that they should give you as far as treatment and therapy is concerned, then they ain't for you, and that's not what they're doing. It sounds more like Christian counseling to me than psychotherapy.
All right. Any other questions? I keep checking my phone, Doc. No questions, but
Okay.
a gang of compliments. Thank you.
Thank y'all very much. All right, the work is not in vain. The work is not in vain. It's not in vain. Okay.
Anyone else? You can come off mute and ask your question, or drop it in the chat if you'd like.
Okay. Well, y'all interrupt me if you got a question. What I have, like I said, I can give y'all some of the additional information to help you know when you need some help. Bottom line is, when you are not operating at baseline again, if I don't know how many, sometimes you have chest pains, you don't know why you got chest pains, what is going on with your chest, I need to go, anxiety, that kind of stuff is real. And if grinding your teeth, you ever find yourself with your fist balled up and you don't know why? You don't even notice that your fists are balled up, and you got a furrowed brow. Somebody say something to you and you sighing and you ain't talked to them today. What you mad at them for? Tightness in your neck and your shoulders to the point where your shoulders are almost attached to your earlobes because your muscles are so tense and you can't calm down. It takes you forever to come to a place of calm. That is not normal or healthy. It's not. You need to go talk to somebody. We were talking about the use of substances. Is one thing. All right, y'all know there are, I forgot what the name of them is in red wine, whatever it is, it makes it good for you. You can have a glass of red wine, that's fine. It's not out of the
I think is it tannins or something? Maybe?
Tannins, yes, is it that?
Yeah.
Is it that?
I don't drink wine, just so y'all know.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine for you. That's fine. Nobody mad. Ain't no judgment. But the thing is, if you find that you are developing a tolerance for what it is that you thought you started using recreationally, and now all of a sudden, like you said, it's a six-pack now. That's a six-pack every night. You got it, and then the next thing you know, you're drinking something harder. You got to have 3 full shots of Crown before you can go to bed every day. That's not okay. When you're increasing your intake, then that means you're developing a tolerance, and it's not for the sake of recreational or social use even, but you're trying to cover up or numb something else. You need to find out what that something else is, because not only what you are over ingesting is having implications for you physically, but the stuff that you think you're burying ain't going nowhere. Okay, it's operating in the background. If you are feeling unusually confused, especially for folks who are type A, were you the type of person who you can jump in, get stuff done, all of a sudden you can't complete tasks, you can't focus, you can't concentrate, your productivity is in the ground. I don't know about y'all, but that for me has implications on my own personal sense of value. Now, I got that from the crazy people when I was in school, because you were as valuable as how much you could actually produce. So I'm working on that. But the bottom line is that if you are historically the go-to person, you can make everything happen and nothing is happening, that's a problem. If your productivity is in the ground and you can't complete basic tasks, especially when it comes down to the stuff like, okay, well, I used to cook 2 to 3 times a week. I ain't cooking no of the times of the week now. Or I will go walking maybe once a day, maybe at lunch, or, when I get home 7 o'clock, I'm not walking. I'm on the sofa and I'm not getting up until 3 o'clock at night, 3 o'clock in the a.m. Children running around, folks walking around you like you furniture because you're not functioning. That's a problem. That's a problem. Yelling and fighting with family and friends on a level that is more than usual. That's a part of our interactions. Some of us are just spirited, and that's just kind of how we talk. You see people, especially from New Orleans, why y'all be hollering and screaming? There don't really be nothing about that. There's a lot of times that's just how we talk to each other. But if you're doing extra and it's creating problems in your relationships, then you need to have a conversation with somebody. Severe mood swings, everything is all good today. You at work dancing and whatever, and everybody's, hey, boo, and girl, hey, and then the next day you want to bite the people's head off and push people down the stairs, especially if there's nothing to have triggered that, nothing to have prompted that, nothing changed, but your moods are swinging. You should pay attention to that. Having persistent thoughts and memories that you can't get out of your head, that's general indication of some trauma that you need to be trying to address, because if you don't take care of it, it will most certainly take care of you. Khalif, you got a question? I think.
I do. Too many buttons to press. Sorry, y'all. Question. Aside from setting up an appointment with you, what are some quick tools that we could use in our daily interactions to kind of keep us from yelling at family members and going off in the car and dealing with this heat of 4,000 degrees outside. What are some quick tools that we could use just to kind of calibrate us back to that safe space of mental health and wellness, like a healthy place?
I'm glad you asked that question. The first thing that you can do, first of all, y'all, get a self-care regimen. By that, I don't mean when you feel like you are getting ready to lose it, when you're trying to keep from catching a case, go get your nails done and get a pedicure and go to, that ain't what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when you open your eyes in the morning, you need to do a reflective self-check to determine where you are. How are you feeling in your body? Do you have anxiety in your body at the moment? Or did you grind your teeth last night? Did you sleep well? Are you tired? Are you irritable? Sometimes you wake up in a good mood. Sometimes you wake up in a bad mood. It can help you to have an idea of what you might have thought about in your sleep, or how was the quality of sleep, and how your day is as of right now set up to go. Check in with yourself. Stretching is a good thing, y'all, if for no other reason than it helps to get our blood flowing. That's a good thing for us. The other thing is meditation. I don't care if your meditation is, I'm getting ready to do some devotion, I'm gonna read my Bible, and this is a scripture I'm gonna meditate on today, and I'm gonna sit for a minute, give myself 10 minutes to sit down, shut up, and center myself, ground myself, so that I am capable with a settled mind and body of being able to address whatever comes to me today. Make that a priority. Do that in the morning before you get up and engage anybody in anything else, so you can center yourself. And it helps you to ground yourself so that you're rooted and you're better capable to be able to bounce back and adapt from whatever else it is that the world is getting ready to, because y'all know it's going to be something every day. But that can help to center you. Not only that, if there are certain people who are affirming and who are supportive, some of y'all might be much like me, who I done been all over the place. I done lived every coast, pick one, I done lived over there. So I have groups of group texts of sister friends and people that I keep like running dialogues with. And when I'm not necessarily feeling my best, sometimes these are the people who can help me to recenter and remind me of what my reality is when I have racing thoughts or crazy stuff in the environment tries to tell me something different. Be affirmed and aware of who you are so that you can check in with yourself when there are things that make you feel like you are not as competent as you generally are, or you feel like you're less valuable, or somebody else is trying to check you on who you are and what your worth is. Know what that is out of the gate, so when the naysayers come, then you can slap that down like LeBron, because you already know what's up. Those are the things that help to fortify you before you connect to the world. And when those things that the world has to offer come against you, it might shake your boat, but you know what your center is. You know what your center is. Do some exercise, y'all. I can't tell you the difference a walk outside makes. Better if you do it before the sun is on the ground in Texas, or if you do it after the sun then went to somebody else's ground in Texas. But being able to get outside, and I'm not talking about necessarily with your earbuds or whatever on, I'm talking about connecting to what's happening in nature and focusing on the thoughts that are in your head. Those kind of things in and of themselves, the fresh air, the engagement with the environment around you can help you to gain perspective when there are external factors that are trying to make you think you crazy or you finna lose it. If you have certain things that you do, pay attention to when you can recognize that things are about to go off the chains, get off the scale for you. When you need to take a break, take it, and don't apologize, okay? Don't apologize. Let the people get it how they live, okay? Yeah, let the people get it how they live. You have a responsibility to yourself first. Do you know that you are, and I'm about this one, my Christianity for sure, you are fearfully and wonderfully created by divine design. That means that you have gifts and a responsibility, okay? There's something you're supposed to manifest while you're in the earth. If you're still here, then whatever you're supposed to manifest ain't happened yet. You have an obligation to protect that. You are his, and he created you in his own image in accordance with his intention for your life. It is your responsibility to take care of it, and you only get one. This is not a rehearsal, y'all. It ain't gonna be no do-overs. It's not. If he values you enough to protect you from the foolishness that's going on everywhere around you, then guess what? Who are you to say that you ain't worth enough? That you're not valuable enough? You are your first responsibility. You are your first responsibility. So take care of you first. And even though you might feel like you have, because we've been trained to feel like we have to apologize or that it's selfish to take care of yourself. It's not. It's not. You have a responsibility to take care of yourself first. And if you find yourself in the company of people who are pissed off and can't accept when you stop to take care of you, then you need to ask yourself about who you're connected to and why. And is it you that they value, or is it what you bring, your resource, that they value? Because you're responsible for you first. Yeah. So as far as taking care of you is concerned, like I said, we kind of think retail therapy. I don't know if you got Beyonce money, that's cute. But personally, cute shoes, some of us know about me and the doctor like cute shoes too. Shut up over there, Letitia, don't be talking. But y'all, some of y'all know I like cute shoes. And they're cute for when it's time to be cute. But if you have some other stuff, if it's a hole you're trying to fill, cute shoes don't fill holes. Designer bags do not fill holes. Luxury cars do not. Can I tell y'all, a vacation to Tulum does not fill holes. It might run up credit cards, but it does not fill holes. It does not fill holes. And when you feel like the things that you are doing for the sake of preventing mental illness and they're not facilitating wellness are not enough, then you need to go get some help. And getting help does not make you weak. It doesn't. Don't let the people tell you that. Again, the people can get it how they live.
Doc, you're going to make me add another title to your name. Outside of friend, sister, personal therapist, you got this many titles with me. It's now Reverend Dr. Janice Moody. Because you're preaching today.
Let me find out. I'm tired. I'm tired of us not having the liberty to live in the fullness that we are entitled to. And I don't know if y'all heard him, but Bob Marley said that you have to emancipate yourself from mental slavery. So I need you to understand the difference that it makes when you change your mind about so many things, about what you deserve, about what you have to put up with, about what you can do, about what you can't do, about what you can have and what you can't have, about what your limitations are and where your boundaries got to be. As soon as you decide that you're going to have what you deserve, watch what happens. Because you won't stand for nothing else. You won't stand for nothing else. Start taking care of you and then deal with raggedy people who are abusive. You're going to be clutching them. I wish, what? Ain't nobody told y'all? Okay. You don't value you. You can't expect anybody else to value you. So don't fall for the okie doke when they try to tell you that you ain't worth nothing. Just because you don't know the value of a Maybach, because you walking around here with Jesus sandals on in the rainforest does not mean that my worth is not what it is. Because you don't do what you stay over there and wear the leaves in the trees and walk with your Jesus sandals over there in the rainforest. That's fine. Because you don't know the value, and that does not take away from who our worth is, and that's fine. But you stay over there because you will not get to devalue this divine creation over here. Okay.
My goodness, Doc, you know I can talk to you all night long, and we done been there.
Yes.
We are at 7:30. Everyone, I'm loving the comments. I love the questions. Doc, if we need to have you back, we're gonna have you back again. Hey, everyone that hung on with us so far, I think it's 24 of us left. Stay tuned. Not on this platform, but watch for Dr. Janice, Reverend Dr. Janice Moody, on another platform. We're gonna try to get this done by the end of the summer, Doc. That's my promise to you. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Look at I see a note here already. Bring her back. All right. I'm going to call it time. And yeah, Doc, we will have you back. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I love you. As I always tell you, I love you, and it ain't a doggone thing.
Ain't nothing you can do about it. Nothing you can do about it. Nothing you can, they don't know it's a game to see who can say it first.
Right. Everybody that joined the call, thank you. I love you all as well. Thank you. Like I said, our goal here is to see, hopefully you learn something. Apply it to your personal lives and people that you love and care about, and that you do life with. Thank you for joining us. Man, come back next month. We'll have another one. Keywan, thank you, brother. Thank you for allowing this platform for the Brothers of Kappa Psi Tulsa Alumni Chapter. I'm looking through here, and I'm seeing a lot of different Greek faces. Thank y'all for joining. Hey, spread the word. Tell your chat. Do the same thing in your chapters. There's a lot of different topics out here that we be talking about. I don't mind moderating for a nominal fee. I'll come on and moderate for you. All right, you all. Thank you so much, Doc. We'll talk again in a little bit, okay?
Special shout out to all of my Love, Joy, Happiness folks and my AKA Bu Kappa Omega sisters who showed up in support, and my prep sister, my New Orleans people out here. So thank y'all. And for those of y'all who came back, I appreciate y'all being in the mix too. And I'm hoping that you are able to take this information, be different, and help to impact somebody else, help somebody else to be different too.
All right, y'all. Thanks. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night, y'all.